Hey, it's super late. It's going for 11:30 and I'm all done filming for today, except for this video that I'm filming right now. But I've gotten an awful lot of comments and questions asking me about my knitting in videos over the last few days. So I thought, while I'm sitting here, I was listening to my audiobook and working on knitting, I'd take a second and explain to you what I'm working on. And answer some questions about the kind of knitting that I'm doing in particular, because if you'll notice, I don't have straight needles, I don't have double points, even though I'm knitting something that's circular. I'm using 2 circular needles. So let me share with you a little bit here. Thank you, by the way, to everybody who asked me about what I'm knitting or how it is that I'm knitting on 2 circulars at once. Anytime y'all give me a chance to nerd out on knitting, I'm super grateful for the opportunity. Obviously, I'm knitting the Melt the Ice hat pattern. This is put out by Needle and Skein. It's a $5 pattern. You can get it on Ravelry, and all of the proceeds go toward immigrants' rights and other good causes for the resistance folks in Minnesota. I believe they've raised something like $850,000 so far from knitters all over the world purchasing this hat pattern. The pattern is a variation on the red Norwegian resistance hat that was worn during World War II. You might say, Angela, you've been knitting this for a while now. Why is it not done yet? Well, it's because I don't personally love the decreases at the top of the hat. So I got through the bottom cuff part of it. And then you can make this longer or shorter, however you want. If you want it to be have a fold over brim, then you want to do it a little bit longer, obviously. So I've gotten to the top decrease part, and it looks great for all of y'all who've made it. It looks super cute, but I wanted something a little bit fancier. So I keep knitting and ripping out and knitting and ripping out different variations. And I think what I've decided on, I don't know if you can see here, is I'm going to do a cable pattern. So once it blocks out, right, there'll be a cable pattern up the sides of the hat, and then it'll get the little tassel on the end when I'm done. So I'm pretty close. I'll probably finish it in a day or two. The pattern has adaptations for 3 different yarn weights. So you can use fingering or like a sock or DK weight, which is what this is, or worsted. I actually had a hard time finding yarn. I didn't have any red yarn in my stash. I know that's shocking. I have so much yarn in my stash, but I didn't have any red yarn. And I couldn't actually find any red yarn that was all wool in Portland that I wanted for the hat. I looked around, and with a hat pattern, you only need 1 skein of yarn, so it shouldn't be that hard. But gosh, they've raised $850,000. So think how many people have purchased this hat pattern. Folks all over the country, all over the world, are knitting red hats. So I actually had to order the yarn online from a yarn company in Pennsylvania, who sent it to me very quickly. This is Cascade's sport weight yarn. It's really more like a DK weight yarn. Okay, so the pattern is knit in the round, right? You're knitting a tube, and I used to be a big fan of using double points. I was like a hardcore double point knitter. And then several years ago, many years ago, I learned the Kat Bordy method of how to knit in the round on 2 circular needles. I actually learned this technique developed by Kat Bordy, where she knits 2 socks at once on 2 circular needles. I'm never going back to double points after that. But this technique works really well for anything that you're knitting in the round, not just 2 socks at once. So you need 2 circular needles of the same size. Now the pattern called for 6s. I am using 5s, which is weird because I tend to knit really tight, but that's what got me to the right gauge. So obviously I have half my stitches on one needle and half on the other. And before I explain exactly how I'm knitting with these, I want to point out the differences in these 2 needles. So this pair here, the silver pair, which you can see they want to curl and the plastic is really stiff. These are a pair that I inherited from my grandma. My mother didn't knit, but my grandma, Frankie Beal, she was a big knitter, and I inherited a whole box of her needles. She passed away in 1979. So most of her needles are from the 60s and 70s, aluminum, or some of them are even steel from the 40s. And all of the circulars have this very stiff plastic on them. I don't love knitting with them. I do feel connected to my grandma, but the plastic is just unwieldy, and I don't enjoy it. In fact, when I go to knit with these kinds of old-fashioned circular needles, I usually dip the plastic in hot water before I start knitting, and that helps it lay a little bit flatter. Otherwise, they tend to curl up really tightly like this, and I don't want them to do that. So dip them in hot water, and I kind of stretch them out a little bit, and then I knit with them. But even so, they are vastly inferior to this pair here with a red cord. This is Chow Gu. These are, I want to say like $8 or $9. I bought them years ago. And boy, oh boy, the difference, right? They're just like supple and flexible and lovely, lovely to knit with. I know a lot of people like knit picks for circular needles as well. And of course, the standard is kind of Addi Turbos, which I believe are made in Germany. That's out of my budget. I am not somebody who is going to spend money on Addi Turbos. I'm so cheap that I can't even buy 2 pairs of Chow Goos. So I have I have like one side of the hat that I'm a little bit resentful of having to knit on these crappy ones. And I have the lovely, lovely Chow Goos on the other side. So for the cat boardy method, you're only working with one circular at a time. The other one is just going to hang out and kind of flop around, chill out, relax. You're not touching it. It's like it's not there. I'm taking this needle and my red needle for this side, and I'm just going to knit across this row. Right, I'm only working on half the stitches at a time. I do have older tutorials on my YouTube channel where I talk about the cat boardy method in greater detail. And because I'm doing a decrease, I got to do a knit 2 together here really quickly. And do you see like the silver needles are just dangling, they're hanging, and I'm knitting across with the red Chow Goos until I get to the end of the row. And then I'm going to drop the red Chow Goos and I'm going to knit with the old circulars from my Grandma Frankie. And we're just going to go around and around and around like that, right? This is very, very fast. And I don't knit very fast. If you watch me in my videos, I'm somebody who throws my stitches because that's how I learned to knit when I was 18 years old. And I'm about to turn 47, so you can do the math. Shout out to my friend Kathy. Every time I talk about knitting, shout out to Kathy, who changed the trajectory of my life by teaching me how to knit in a college dorm kitchen when I was 18. Little did she know what beast she unleashed in me, but I throw my stitches, I don't pick them. And so that means that I'm a little bit slower. And so anything I can do to speed up my knitting. One of the additional benefits of using the cat boardy method is that if I'm doing very simple cables, my needles that are hanging out in the back, they serve double duty as a cable needle. Because I've added this it's not fancy. It's very, very easy, just 2 by 2, right? Purl, knit 2, purl in the middle, knit 2, purl pattern in the middle of the decreases to give a nice cable band up the side of the hats. I'm just gonna slide those first 2 knit stitches and a purl stitch onto my back needle here, and then continue with twisting my cable. Very, very easy. It's going very quickly. The only reason it's taking me forever to finish this hat is because I was really fussy about the first cable I tried was too small, and then I was doing the twists too often, and I wanted it to look good. I wanted it to look nice, so I keep ripping it out, which is fine. I really enjoy the process of knitting as much as the product. Hang on, I can't talk and cable at the same time. Give me a second. Okay, cable done, moving on. I did a video last year on how knitting is the original stim. I think for a lot of us, it's really functional handwork, but it's also very therapeutic. And so I just enjoy the process. I don't do very well sitting still. Even if I'm walking, I tend to get bored quite easily and my mind tends to wander, and I need something to do with my hands. If you notice in my videos, if I don't have something in my hands like knitting, I'm very much a gesticulator, and I know it can get annoying for people. So I take my knitting with me on hikes. I'm knitting in meetings. If I'm at an organizing meeting, or when we used to go to church, I was always knitting in church. I knitted in college lectures. There's no other way for me to sit still and have my mind not wander in 27 different directions. I've got to be doing something with my hands. And knitting has just been really absolutely perfect for that. And at the end of it, not only have I managed to keep my brain a little bit calm and my body occupied, I produce something lovely and woolen, some kind of garment that I can wear, someone that I love and care for can wear. If you look on my YouTube channel, I have a number of tutorials for really basic knitting techniques, including things like adding dragon scales or doing a simple thumb gusset in a mitten. Like I said, thank you for giving me a chance to nerd out on knitting a little bit. I have a bunch of old videos on my YouTube, by the way, about spinning and knitting and, steaming your yarn, and when I made a wool hackle and wool combs and, all of that processing fiber and spinning with hair for my poodles. I am thrilled, beyond thrilled to get any chance to talk about knitting as resistance, knitting as a stim, sustainable fashion, local textile economies. Yeah, any of that. I'm just pleased as punch to get to talk about that. So I know it's really late. I'm going to try and finish this hat tonight, and then I'll post a picture of it when I'm done. I'd love to know what y'all are knitting, if there's favorite patterns that you have, or other crafts that you engage in, other hobbies that are important to you right now as a creative outlet, something that's helping you cope in these times. I'd love to hear about it. And thanks again. Y'all take care.